We built a bomb that could end the world. Then we built thousands more. We tested them, dropped them, worshipped them, and buried them deep underground. And now, they wait. One glitch, one false alarm, one launch from a madman gone rogue is all it takes, and it's lights out. I'll be honest, I've spent a lot of time in researching this and just thinking about it on a personal level. I wasn't sure if I should make this video, as I'm still pretty new to content creation, and I really wanted to do this topic justice. So, by the end of this video, my goal is to have all of you asking the same question. Why did we create, manufacture, and mass produce the end of the world? And why are we still keeping it around? There's been a lot of talk lately in the news about nukes, and about how certain countries should have them and others shouldn't. What's clear is right now, people are losing their lives at the sheer mention of this weapon. Nuclear weapons have become such an integrated part of pop culture, whether it's video games, movies, or simply just hearing about them on the news cycle what seems like every couple of months now. But I think that desensitizes us to their horrifyingly destructive power and the path of death and destruction they've already left behind us. So let's break this down. 1, where did they come from? Where did all of this start? 2, exactly just how destructive are these things? Is this even a big deal? And 3, where do we go from here? In a world with peacekeeping organizations and most, if not all, modern countries preaching for peace, is having the ability to end the world really the solution? This is Iron Rations. Like, subscribe, and let's get into it. The 1940s, a world at war. Hitler's military was already advancing rocketry and chemical warfare, and there was a credible fear that Nazi Germany might be working on atomic energy. That fear sparked the Manhattan Project, a massive, secret U.S. operation launched in 1942 with the goal of building the first nuclear weapon. Backed by Britain and Canada and fueled by the brains of escaped European physicists like Leo Szilard and Enrico Fermi, the U.S. poured billions into the most terrifying science project ever built. On July 16, 1945, in the desert of New Mexico, the Trinity test lit the sky with a blinding flash. The earth shook, and the glass sands still glow. Now, how does a nuclear bomb actually work? Here's the simplest version of a very complex monster. A nuclear bomb works by splitting atoms, literally tearing them apart. Fission bombs like these dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki use radioactive materials like uranium-235 and plutonium-239. When triggered, a conventional explosive forces the material into a supercritical state. Basically, it crams enough atoms together to cause a chain reaction. Each split atom releases massive energy, and neutrons that split more than atoms, which split more, and more. This all happens in microseconds, releasing a pulse of heat, blast, and radiation that can level a city. Fusion bombs, aka hydrogen bombs, like Castle Bravo or the Tsar Bomba, we'll cover that later. These take it further, using a fission explosion to ignite fusion, the same reaction that powers the sun. It fuses hydrogen isotopes like deuterium and tritium into helium, releasing even more energy. Think of it like lighting a stick of dynamite with a grenade. Bottom line, a nuclear bomb unleashes the same kind of energy that powers stars, except on Earth, in seconds and with the intent to kill. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. J. Robert Oppenheimer, quoting the Bhagavad Gita. FYI, I had no idea what the Bhagavad Gita was either, so in short, it's essentially the Hindu Bible. It breaks down a bunch of their principles and gives an outline on how to live your life and not be a total piece of crap. We had done it. We cracked the atom. We split the universe wide open and created a weapon with no equal. But at what cost? Less than a month later, America dropped that weapon on a city. August 6th, 1945, Hiroshima. At exactly 8:15 a.m., a blinding white flash swept across the city. In less than a second, the temperature at the epicenter reached 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hotter than the surface of the sun. People within 500 meters were instantly vaporized, leaving only shadows burned into stone and concrete. But those further away, they didn't die quickly. Many suffered from acute radiation sickness. Within hours, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, and within days, fevers, massive hair loss, bleeding gums. Internal organs began to hemorrhage. Bone marrow died. The body stopped making new blood. Children developed purple blotches on their skin, signs of blood vessels bursting under radiation damage. Survivors described skin melting off their hands and backs like wet paper. Eyes swelled shut, tongues turned black. Many who survived the blast died weeks later from infections, internal bleeding, or total immune collapse. Pregnant women miscarried or gave birth to babies with severe deformities. Thousands developed leukemia, thyroid cancer, or tumors over the coming decades. 3 days later, Nagasaki. The terrain spared some, but the bomb was more powerful. The results were the same. Black rain, incinerated bodies, mass graves, and the slow, cruel death of radiation exposure. These weren't soldiers, they were civilians. Men, women, children, burned, poisoned, and left to die in a hell that did not stop with the blast. By the end of 1945, an estimated 140,000 people were dead, and that number kept climbing long after the fires stopped. The decision is still debated. Did it end the war faster? Probably. Could Japan have surrendered without it? Maybe. Was it a demonstration to the Soviet Union? More than likely. But one thing's certain, it changed the rules of war forever. No battlefield, no soldiers, just fire from the sky. After the war, the US wanted to keep testing. And what better place than a remote tropical island? Enter Bikini Atoll. The Marshallese people were told they'd be temporarily relocated for the good of mankind. That was a lie. The people of Rongelap and Utrecht atolls weren't warned at all. In 1954, the US detonated Castle Bravo, a 15-megaton hydrogen bomb, over 1,000 times more powerful than Hiroshima. It was so strong that it blew a crater in the ocean floor. After the explosion, radioactive ash laced with iodine-131 and cesium-137 and strontium-90 rained down like snow. It coated water supplies, food, and people's skin. The children played in it like snow, having no idea the levels of deadly radiation they were absorbing. Within hours, the residents experienced vomiting, burning skin, fatigue, and mouth ulcers. Hair fell out in clumps, skin blistered, and in many cases lost its elasticity entirely, sliding off of people's muscle and tissue. The US Navy arrived 2 days later to evacuate them, after they all had received lethal doses of radiation, most already too sick to even move. Women suffered miscarriages and stillbirths at an alarming rate. Many who gave birth had babies with severe deformities, missing limbs, translucent skin, or some who died shortly after delivery. One Marshallese woman is quoted as saying, "My baby was born like a jellyfish. There were no bones." Over time, cancer rates soared, especially thyroid cancer, due to radioactive iodine absorption in children. The islanders weren't just victims, they were unwitting test subjects. Without consent, the US government launched Project 4.1, a classified program to study the biological effects of fallout on humans. Marshallese survivors were poked, prodded, measured, and photographed for decades. Many were never able to return home, and Bikini remains extremely radioactive and uninhabitable. Generations lost their homeland and their health to a test they were never told would happen. October 30th, 1961, the Tsar Bomba. The Soviets dropped the most powerful thermonuclear weapon ever created, 50 megatons. That's the explosive force of 50 million tons of TNT, over 3,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. The fireball was 8 miles wide. The flash was visible over 600 miles away. Windows shattered 500 miles out. The mushroom cloud reached 7 times the height of Mount Everest. And here's the insane part. It was originally designed to be 100 megatons, but Soviet scientists scaled it down because they feared it might ignite the atmosphere. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev is quoted, "We just wanted to show them who's boss." See, before the Tsar Bomba, back during the Trinity test in 1945, the first nuclear explosion ever, some of the Manhattan Project scientists feared something much worse could happen. That the explosion might ignite Earth's atmosphere and kill everyone. Now, if you're anything like me, your first question here is, how? Let's break that down. The theory was this: a nuclear explosion releases so much energy in heat, pressure, and radiation that it could theoretically fuse the nitrogen in the air. The atmosphere is about 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. Under extreme temperatures, like those inside a nuclear blast, nitrogen atoms could fuse together, releasing even more energy. This raised the terrifying possibility of a runaway fusion chain reaction. In short, fusion reaction begins in atmospheric nitrogen. Heat from that reaction triggers fusion in nearby air molecules. That spreads like fire in dry grass across the globe. The entire sky becomes fuel. Everything burns and nothing lives. The scientists called it atmospheric ignition. And yes, they seriously thought it might happen. Now, could the atmosphere actually catch fire? The short answer is probably not. But the longer answer, and the one to really think about here, is they weren't sure at the time. The fear was sparked by a 1942 calculation from physicist Edward Teller. Yep, the guy who later helped build the H-bomb. He speculated that gamma rays from a nuclear blast might set off a cascade in the atmosphere's nitrogen and hydrogen. Later calculations show that this scenario was, quote, extremely unlikely, but not entirely ruled out until after the Trinity test didn't light the sky on fire. In other words, we ran the test anyway, hoping that it wouldn't ignite the planet. Hey, that's science under pressure. We've done the math. It probably won't burn the world down, but we'll only know once we try. Nuclear weapons aren't the only threat. Sometimes the danger is in just keeping the lights on. Chernobyl, 1986. A poorly executed safety test turned into a catastrophe when Reactor 4 exploded. The graphite core burned for 10 days, sending radioactive clouds across Europe. Soviet denial and delay only made this worse. Whole towns were evacuated. Many people had acute radiation sickness and all the fun symptoms that comes with. Birth defects and cancers followed with those who were close to the explosion. Not to mention, radioactive clouds traveled across Europe, getting other people sick in different countries that didn't even know what happened. Needless to say, this sparked worldwide outrage, and it's arguable that it was ultimately what led to the downfall and complete collapse of the Soviet Union only a few years later. The exclusion zone remains a radioactive ghostland to this day. Fukushima, 2011. An earthquake and tsunami knocked out backup power. Reactors 1 through 3 overheated, melted down, and released radioactive water in the Pacific Ocean. Studies have detected cesium-134 and cesium-137 in Pacific bluefin tuna caught off the U.S. West Coast. It's still rumored that if you took a Geiger counter to the canned meat section of your local grocery store and measured cans of tuna, you would find close to dangerous levels of radiation. Because of this and other factors, it's recommended by the FDA that the average adult can safely eat about 6 to 9 ounces of tuna per week. Japan's infrastructure was considered modern and prepared, until it wasn't. These weren't bombs, but they showed us something terrifying. Even when we're not trying to destroy the world, we still might. Today, 9 countries have nuclear weapons. The US and Russia hold 90% of the global stockpiles. China is rapidly expanding its arsenal. India and Pakistan stare each other down. North Korea throws missiles into the sea like a toddler having a tantrum. And Israel won't confirm it, but we all know. France and the UK keep theirs quiet, but ready. Right now, there are over 12,000 nuclear warheads on Earth. Around 2,000 are ready to launch within minutes. And let's not forget, some of these are in submarines, silent, roaming, and undetectable, designed for second strike retaliation. You hit us, we hit back, even if we're already dead. This is called mutually assured destruction. MAD. Which is appropriate, because that's exactly what it is. One nuclear bomb on a major city would kill hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, in minutes. But that's just the beginning. Let's talk about what happens if multiple nuclear weapons are launched, and what happens after the fire. It's called nuclear winter, and it's not sci-fi, it's science. Mostly, kind of. Let me explain. What is nuclear winter? When nuclear weapons detonate, they don't just vaporize cities, they ignite massive fires. These are called firestorms. Walls of flames, hundreds of feet high, sucking in oxygen and torching everything in its path. A full-scale nuclear exchange, say 100 to 200 bombs hitting cities across the globe, would generate millions of tons of smoke and soot from these firestorms. That smoke rises into the stratosphere, higher than any rain clouds can reach. And once it's up there, it stays. The sun gets blocked, and global temperatures drop fast. Within weeks, crops start failing. Temperatures in key growing regions plunge by 5 to 13 degrees. Some areas see snow in summer, rain patterns shift, photosynthesis crashes, plants die, livestock starves, famine begins. Within year one, global food production would drop by 20 to 90% depending on the location and scale of exchange. Billions face mass starvation, especially in already vulnerable regions. The oceans cool, plankton dies. The entire marine food chain collapses. The smoke still hasn't cleared. Years 2 through 5, blackened skies, frozen fields, supply chains gone. Disease spreads in crowded, starving populations. Governments collapse. Wars break out over remaining food and fuel. Radiation sicknesses and long-term cancers rise. Estimated death toll in a full global exchange, studies estimate 5 to 6 billion people would die within the first few years. Not from the blast, but from famine, cold, and social collapse. That's 70 to 80% of humanity, not from war, but from the sky going dark. And here's the kicker. This isn't just theoretical. It's based on decades of peer-reviewed climate modeling from the National Center of Atmospheric Research at Rutgers University and others. Even a limited nuclear war, like between India and Pakistan, could cause 2 billion deaths from food shortage alone. There's no such thing as a winnable nuclear war. You don't win. You don't rebuild. You just watch it all unravel. And this could all happen by accident. False radar blip, a hacked alert system, an AI glitch. And the worst part, it's almost happened more than once. We talked about Vasily Arkhipov in another episode, but in short, this Soviet submarine officer single-handedly stopped a scenario just like this from happening during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. If you want to learn more about that event, I'll put a card up right now and I'll make sure I put that video at the end screen. No one wants to use nukes. Everyone swears they're a last resort, but no one wants to be the first to disarm either. Treaties like START and the Non-Proliferation Treaty slowed the race, but they didn't stop it. Nations still build, still modernize, and still have them aimed directly at each other. And now there's talk of using AI to manage early warning systems and launch readiness, because clearly what the world needs is a robot with feelings in charge of Armageddon. Yes, they're actually talking about putting AI in charge of whether or not to annihilate the world. I mean, guys, what are we even talking about anymore? Hasn't anybody seen Terminator? Sorry about that. Now, I'm sure you've said to yourself by now, there has to be a more sophisticated system in place. I mean, one person can't just decide to launch nukes whenever they want, right? There's bureaucracy involved. A vote, if you will. And to that I say, no, there's not. Let's talk about the US's protocol for the end of days scenario when a nuke is launched and we're pretty sure it's headed straight for us. The president and the president alone is responsible for making the final decision. They're followed 24/7 by a military aide carrying a black briefcase called the nuclear football. Inside, launch codes, communication gear, and a menu of global extinction options. If incoming missiles are detected, say from Russia or China, the president would be notified immediately and rushed to make a decision. How much time would they have? Roughly 6 to 12 minutes, tops. In that tiny window, the president has to 1. Be briefed, 2. Authenticate their identity, 3. Review retaliation options, and 4. Decide whether to end the world or hope it's just a false alarm. There's no debate, no Congress, no vote. Just one person, one chair, one button, one choice. And if this is how the world's superpower has decided to hand out this responsibility, I can only imagine what these other countries' process is. We are the only species to create a weapon that can erase itself from the planet. And instead of being horrified, we budget for it. We train for it. We normalize it. We argue about it on cable news like it's just policy. And the truth is, most people probably don't even know half of the information that I put in this video. They have no idea that they live every second of their lives under the constant threat of literal extinction. Also, the leaders of these countries can fluff themselves up like peacocks and dare the other guy to hit first. Maybe it's time we stop accepting that this is how the world has to be. No other threat on Earth is this final. No other weapon exists just to end everything. This is not strength, it's fear. And the only way forward is to bury that fear. Destroy the bombs before they destroy us. I hope I've provided you with enough information to share with other people and to spread the word on this. I don't think that this is talked about enough. It's absolutely insane that we have these things just sitting around waiting to end the world, and no one talks about it bluntly like that. And in the end, I think we can all agree, there is absolutely no situation outside of a world-killing asteroid headed straight for us that we would ever need weapons this powerful to be used on each other. This is Iron Rations. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're more curious about the Cuban Missile Crisis and one of the closest calls we've ever had, I'll make sure I put that video in the end screen. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, guys, Christ is King.